This week's chapter talk is going to focus on becoming a better listener. 3 key learning objectives. 1, identify barriers to effective listening. 2, recognize how to become a more effective listener. And then thirdly, explore ethical responsibilities as a listener. Okay, so let's tackle our first objective. And to do that, we will begin with a quote. The most basic of all human needs is to understand and be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen to them. And these words come from Ralph Nichols. So as a speaker, to fully understand your role, your importance, it's critical that we become a good listener. When we listen, we communicate one thing. We communicate, we care. And when we listen, the speaker knows that we care about them, and that is what trust is built on. Now, it's much easier said than done, as we are pulled in so many directions. But this chapter is really going to strip down the basics of what is effective listening and how do we do it. So, along the lines of our first objective, let's identify the barriers to effective listening. There are, 7 before you: the communication gap, motivation, willingness, internal and external noise, detouring, debate, and time. So let's break these down briefly. The first is the communication gap. You may have heard of this before. The communication gap is really the central, theory surrounding all the difficulties in listening. So what the communication gap is, our brains are pretty amazing. We can take in up to 500 words per minute. I repeat, 500 words per minute. We can hear them and we can comprehend them. So here is the rub. The average speaker, me speaking right now, I'm probably using approximately 125 words per minute. So some simple math will explain the gap. You can hear and comprehend 500 words a minute, and I'm only using 125. So that remaining 375 word capacity is what we fill. We take that gap and we fill it with thoughts, ideas, distractions, and so forth. So 75% of our brain is not being used in any given listening situation. And that's where we get in trouble. So all of the barriers we examined, really, in my opinion, roll up under this concept of the communication gap. So let's break those down. First, motivation, okay? Motivation. Listening is hard. And oftentimes we're just not committed or focused, and the gap takes over. Now, I will tell you what motivates us as a listener is typically when the information matters to us. So the more important the information is to you, the more intensely, the more focused you are as a listener. So if I were to say, okay, here are the 5 things you need to know for your quiz this week, you're probably going to sit up, you're probably going to grab that pencil, right? The ears are going to perk up because you have motivation. So we need to remember this as a speaker. What's in it for me? That acronym, once again, WIFM, that's what our listener cares about. The second one then is willingness. Okay, willingness is like motivation. However, it's a little bit more innate, okay? Willingness. This one oftentimes tops all barriers. As a human being, we typically would rather be heard than listen. We want to chime in. We're waiting for the gap in the conversation to slip our 2 cents in, to prepare a rebuttal. We're simply not that willing as a species to hand the stage over to someone else. The next barrier, internal and external noise. Okay, let's split these 2 apart. Internal noise. That is your cognitive noise. That's what's going on inside of you, okay? So that would be our example here. I'm hungry. Hunger is internal noise. If you're hungry, if you're tired, if you have a headache, if you're anxious, all of these things override, and it's really challenging to listen. Whereas external noise are things that you cannot control. One of my peeves, as you can see, chewing, worst noise ever. Somebody chewing, maybe it's somebody tapping a pencil across the room. Maybe it's ding, message alerts. Maybe it's the doors open to the classroom and you can hear students passing. Those simple things are external noise and they can be very distracting. Other things that contribute to external noise, your instructor. If you have an instructor that is using a word repeatedly, now I'm guilty of this as well. We have our go-to words. That can become external noise. If I'm going, okay, does that make sense? Using the same phrases again and again, that can become external noise because it's distracting you from the root of the message. Next gap is detouring. Oh boy, we all love a good detour during road construction season. Detouring is how our mind runs off, okay? So if I'm sitting in class right now, and let's say the professor is discussing something of relevance regarding food, the food pyramid. And now me as a mother and a professional, I might be thinking, okay, oh shoot, we're out of milk. I better grab milk on my way home from campus. And then I start thinking about, okay, I'll stop at Walgreens and I also need to pick up some zinc and X, Y, and Z. And suddenly I'm drafting this list of stops I need to make, and I'm completely off track and no longer even know what the speaker's talking about. So that's my brain starting here with the food pyramid and ending up way over here devising my grocery list and errands on the way home. That is detouring. Very easy to do. The next is debate, a fitting little image here. Debate. Debate happens when the speaker says something you disagree with. When this happens, we have an automatic defense mechanism that just kicks in. We either put up a wall, right? We just shut down. We no longer want to hear anything more. Or we start preparing a rebuttal in our mind where, yes, we are shut down, meaning we're no longer listening. But at that same time, we're preparing what we're going to say in response or retort. Debate is a biggie as well for many people. Whoops, I'm going to slide back and make one more point. Trigger words. As a speaker, we want to avoid things that will trigger debate. Trigger words are things that squeeze the trigger on emotion, political topics, religion, things of that nature that are controversial, social issues. It is important to speak about those things, don't get me wrong. But if it's unnecessary or it's not central to your message, I would avoid using trigger words because unintentionally you could trigger an audience member to shut down. Okay, and then our last barrier is good old time. The clock is always ticking. We operate in a very polychronic society, meaning time is of the essence. Tick-tock, right? There's all these great sayings surrounding it. Time is money. Time is a biggie. When we are short on time, we lack willingness as well as motivation to listen. So as a speaker, it's really important that we're aware of people's time. We don't want to take too much time. So much of speaking is saying what you need to say and then stop talking, right? Being intentional, being purposeful. And people listen better if they know you speak with purpose. We've all sat in a class or a meeting where the person speaking is wandering and talking about all these things not related to the topic. And we are checked out. We are watching the door. We're trying to plan our escape. We do not want that to happen when we're speaking. The other thing is, time-wise, we need to make sure we give people enough. If your employer says, I need you to go do this project, go do, and they give you no instruction, they didn't take enough time. And that creates anxiety and confusion while that person is speaking. Okay, so think about this. What barriers personally are your go-to? What things prevent you from listening? And I would say my two biggies at this stage of life would be time and also detouring. My mind's always trying to multitask. And I think probably willingness. I know when I get home from a day of teaching, I'm pretty much out of words. And my kids, are meeting me at the door and mom, mom, mom. And I always try to say, okay, let's give mom 5 minutes. Let me go change into comfies. And I promise you I'll be a better listener. Where I just need that decompress, where I'm putting a boundary on, okay, mom needs to do this. And then you have my attention. Okay, so next up, let's talk about how to become a more effective listener. And to do that, we're going to look first at 4 simple styles of listening. Okay, appreciative is the first, and that is where we listen to appreciate. Oh boy, I was in Vegas last January, right before COVID struck, and I got to see the Beatles' Love Show. And that was just simply amazing. It was appreciative. The music paired with the dance, and of course, the whole choreography. But when you appreciate something for its poetry, its humor, its artistry, that's appreciative listening. What I think of is listening to music you love and appreciating it. The second function then is empathic, and that is where we listen to understand. We are listening simply to understand a speaker's perspective. Now, this is something that I have worked really hard on in life, and I still work on it. That means putting our own thoughts or perspectives aside and just listening to understand, not to reply, not to teach, not to rebuke or refute, just to understand. Empathic listening. Third is comprehensive listening. Okay, comprehensive listening is when you listen to what is said, but also how it is said. You're seeking a clear understanding of the message. So for example, if we are reviewing for a test in class and we're going over the study guide, you want a very clear understanding of what will be on that test and also how the instructor is saying it. If I say, okay, listen up here, and I'm giving you this hint of like, this is important to the test, right? So you're listening to what as well as how. And then the fourth and final function is critical listening. And that is where you're making evaluations. You're shielding yourself from possibly having a faulty impact of that message, misconstruing something, or being led astray. It's developing a healthy skepticism. So you accept nothing without validation. So let's take that a step further. How to listen critically. There are 5 things that we do to listen critically. Number 1 is assess, does the speaker have adequate support? And we lean on 4 R's to do that. Okay, is this information relevant? Okay, does it apply to the situation, or is it the speaker just glamorizing themselves with a story? Is it representative? Okay, is it the rule, not the exception? So the argument that video games cause violence, is this standard? Do all video games cause violence? That would probably be they're making it a rule when a video game prompted incident of violence is really probably more like the exception. The third R, recency. Is it current? And the fourth R, reliable. Is it confirmed by more than one source? Which brings us to our second item, credible sources. Where does the info come from? Is it trustworthy? Is it competent? The third item, clarify the obscure. Words, as you know, can hide their true meaning. There's this thing called doublespeak. Working in the corporate world, words like this often came up. Well, we are restructuring the org chart. Well, indeed, what restructuring the org chart means is company-wide layoffs, right? We need to make sure that there is clarity to the obscure. Fourthly, emotional appeals. Are they used appropriately? Meaning, are they balanced with logic? Yes, we want to hear the personal story, but we also want the facts and data to support that. A demagogue is an emotional appeal without reason. Just a little trivia for you there. And then the last one, constructive application. Okay, and that is really putting the best construction on everything. So no matter what you just listened to, whatever you experienced in that speaking scenario, there's likely something you can take from that, something constructive. And then our third and final objective, explore the ethical responsibilities of a listener. I will be brief on this because a lot of this is, it's understood, but maybe not necessarily applied to speaking. Use the golden rule. As we all know, the golden rule, do unto others as you would do to yourself. The same applies for listeners. Listen to others as you would like them to listen to you. Okay? My mother always said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We should listen twice as much as we speak. Okay, if we keep that in proportion. So think about what it feels like to be heard. What non-verbally is that person doing? They're likely nodding their head. They're engaging in eye contact. Verbally, they're asking questions. They're acknowledging. Please apply these same things as a listener yourself, because good listeners also become good speakers. Okay, So this chapter talk covered three things: identify the barriers to effective listening, and that's where we went through those 7 barriers, recognize how to become more effective, and then explore the ethical responsibilities as a listener. Thank you.